Joanna Walters.
Arizona recorded more coronavirus deaths, infections, hospitalizations and emergency room visits in a single day than ever before in a crisis, in a day across the Sunbelt that sent a shudder through other parts of the country and led distant states to put their own reopening plans on hold.
In Florida, hospitals braced for an influx of patients, with the biggest medical center in Florida's hardest-hit county, Miami's Jackson Health System, scaling back elective surgeries and other procedures to make room for victims of the resurgence underway across the South and West, the Associated Press reports.
Vice President Mike Pence, head of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, planned to visit Arizona today, where cases have spiked since stay-at-home orders expired in mid-May.
Arizona reported record single-day highs of almost 4,900 new COVID-19 cases, 88 new deaths, close to 1,300 visits and a running total of nearly 2,900 people in the hospital.
Florida recorded more than 6,500 new cases, down from around 9,000 on some days last week, but still alarming, and a running total of over 3,500 deaths.
Ahead of the 4th of July, counties in South Florida are closing beaches to fend off large crowds that could spread the virus.
The run-up in cases has been blamed in part on what New Jersey's governor called knucklehead behavior by Americans not wearing masks or obeying other social distancing rules.
Too many people were crowding into restaurants late at night, turning these establishments into breeding grounds for this deadly virus, Miami-Dade Mayor Carlos Jimenez said, in forbidding restaurants with seating for more than 8 people from serving customers inside from midnight to 6 a.m.
Health experts say the virus in Florida and other southern states risks becoming uncontrollable, with case numbers too large to trace.
Marilyn Routh, a senior citizen in Punta Gorda, said Florida's reopening was too much too soon. The sad thing is the COVID-19 spread will probably go on for some time, though we could have flattened the curve with responsible leadership, she said.
Experience now has shown most people won't social distance at beaches, bars, etc. The governor evidently has no concern for the health of the state's citizens.
Some distant states and cities that seem to have tamed their outbreaks, including Colorado, Virginia, Delaware and New Jersey, hit pause or backtracked on some of their reopening plans for bars and restaurants.
And New York and New Jersey are asking visitors from 16 states from the Carolinas to California to quarantine themselves for 2 weeks.
New York Mayor Bill de Blasio said the city is delaying its resumption of indoor dining at restaurants, and not because of any rise in cases there.
The number of confirmed cases in the U.S. per day has roughly doubled over the past month, hitting 44,800 on Tuesday, according to a count kept by Johns Hopkins University.
That is higher even than what the nation witnessed during the deadliest stretch of the crisis in mid-April through early May.
Scott Gottlieb, the former commissioner for the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, told CNBC on Monday that the U.S. still isn't testing enough people for the coronavirus, especially as outbreaks accelerate in states across the country.
From CNBC's Squawk Box.
The former FDA leader's comments come as White House health advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci warned Tuesday that if the country's outbreak continues on its current trajectory, the country could hit more than 100,000 new cases per day. Gottlieb contended the U.S. is already there but aren't testing enough to detect all the new patients.
As we've been reporting throughout the day, health experts and the White House are warning young Americans about the growing risk of contracting and dying from COVID-19, with Vice President Mike Pence saying they have a particular responsibility to make sure that they're not carrying the coronavirus into settings where they would expose the most vulnerable.
For The Guardian's latest on COVID-19 and race, I unpack those numbers and talk with experts about how young people of color are facing the brunt of the spike. According to the CDC, the majority of coronavirus hospitalizations among Black and Latino Americans are of those under the age of 50.
Check out more on the coronavirus spike among youth of color, and be sure to follow all of The Guardian's coverage of racial disparities in the response to the coronavirus outbreak.
In these extraordinary times, The Guardian's editorial independence has never been more important. Because no one sets our agenda, or edits our editor, we can keep delivering quality, trustworthy, fact-checked journalism each and every day. Free from commercial or political bias, we can report fearlessly on world events and challenge those in power.
Your support protects The Guardian's independence. We believe every one of us deserves equal access to accurate news and calm explanation. No matter how unpredictable the future feels, we will remain with you, delivering high-quality news so we can all make critical decisions about our lives, health and security, based on fact, not fiction.
Support The Guardian from as little as $1 and it only takes a minute. Thank you.
COVID-19 cases are skyrocketing in Texas, with the state reporting a single-day high of 6,975 newly confirmed cases on Tuesday.
Hospitalization rates also saw a new surge, with 620 more positive patients being admitted to make the total 6,533 across the state.
Despite the spike, protesters gathered outside the state capitol Tuesday to express their outrage over the continued shutdown of bars and restaurants to combat the spread, which CDC officials sources as a substantial factor in the increase among young people.
One sign even read, "Bar Lives Matter." Classy.
Donald Trump is criticizing New York City's plan to paint "Black Lives Matter" on Fifth Avenue outside Trump Tower, calling it a symbol of hate.
Earlier, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced the city would take this moment in history and amplify it by taking the Black Lives Matter symbolism and putting it all over this city, including right in front of Trump Tower.
The move comes as the president stepped up his defense of actual symbols of hate, Confederate flags and monuments. Using a racist slur against Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, Trump threatened to veto defense spending bills that include provisions to rename Confederate bases.
In trolling fashion, opponents of the president are now calling on the city to rename the street that lines Trump Tower. President Barack H. Obama Avenue. In Washington, D.C., the former 16th Street leading up to the White House is now called Black Lives Matter Plaza.
Joanna Walters.
National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien has said that both the CIA and Pentagon did pursue intelligence assessments that suggested Russia had offered bounties for killing U.S. troops in Afghanistan, and that U.S. intelligence briefed international allies, as the administration steps up its defense of the handling of the military bounty scandal.
"We had options ready to go," O'Brien said on a Fox News show. But added, "It may be impossible to get to the bottom of it."
At a State Department news conference, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the situation was handled incredibly well to ensure the safety of U.S. troops.
The comments from administration officials come as Trump remains under increasing pressure from lawmakers of both parties to provide more answers about the intelligence and the U.S. response or lack of one.
Democrats who were briefed at the White House on Tuesday suggested Trump was bowing to Russian President Vladimir Putin at the risk of U.S. soldiers' lives.
Trump remained defensive about the intelligence, dismissing stories about it as fake news, made up to damage me and the Republican Party.
Former U.S. Marine and now Democratic Senate candidate to face Mitch McConnell in Kentucky in the election, Amy McGrath, is disgusted.
And as the Washington Post noted, the only people dismissing the Russia bounty's intelligence are the Taliban, Russia and Trump, adding that the president can't kick his hoax habit.
San Francisco police will stop releasing the mug shots of people who have been arrested unless they pose a threat to the public, as part of an effort to stop perpetuating racial stereotypes, the city's police chief announced today.
San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott said the policy, which goes into effect immediately, means the department will no longer release booking photos of suspects to the media or allow officers to post them online, the Associated Press reports.
Booking photos are taken when someone is arrested. They are often made public whether or not the person is prosecuted for the alleged crime, which undermines the presumption of innocence and helps perpetuate stereotypes.
Jack Glazer, a public policy professor at the University of California, Berkeley who researches racial stereotyping and whose work Scott consulted, said data shows black people who are arrested are more likely to have their cases dismissed by prosecutors.
But the mug shots live on.
Numerous websites post photos of mug shots online, regardless of whether anyone was convicted of a crime, and then charge a fee to those who want their photo taken down.
The phenomenon prompted California's Attorney General to charge one of the biggest operators with extortion, money laundering, and identity theft. That contributes to Americans making an unfair association between people of color and crime, Scott said.
This is just one small step, but we hope this will be something that others might consider doing as well, he said.
Large cities like Los Angeles and New York already have policies against releasing booking photos but make exceptions. For example, the New York
Police Department, the nation's largest, releases information on arrests but doesn't put out mug shots unless investigators believe that will prompt more witnesses to come forward or aid in finding a suspect.
In San Francisco, the only exceptions will be if a crime suspect poses a threat or if officers need help locating a suspect or an at-risk person, Scott said.
Under the policy, the release of photos or information on a person who is arrested will also require approval from the police department's public relations team.
Lots of news developing throughout the U.S. today. Here's what's been happening today.
Stay tuned for more.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, in his daily press briefing, excoriated Donald Trump for his continued defense of the administration's response to the coronavirus pandemic, saying, "The buck stops on the president's desk."
The governor went on to implore states to reject the president's rhetoric and listen to the science, making a play on Trump's former time as a reality TV host.
Denying reality does not defeat reality. He has lived in denial, and he has been denying the scientific facts since day one, he said. Reality wins and reality won, and now the country is suffering because of the president.
As our UK colleagues first reported, the US has bought up virtually all the stocks for the next 3 months of remdesivir, the trial drug used to treat COVID-19, the respiratory disease that stems from the coronavirus.
The move secures almost all stocks of the drug until October, but leaves none for allies including the UK, Europe, or most of the rest of the world.
From the Department of Health and Human Services.
The buy-up has public health experts fearing many other countries will miss out on accessing the treatment.
Julian Borger.
State Secretary Mike Pompeo was asked this morning about reports of Russian bounties to the Taliban for killing American soldiers. He did not deny it but instead suggested such things happened all the time.
Pompeo added that Russians meddling in Afghanistan is nothing new, refuting members of Congress who he claimed, suggesting that they are shocked and appalled.
It is not true that Congress receives all the intelligence provided to the White House, however. Only a small number of members of Congress are periodically briefed on some intelligence issues.
A lawsuit filed by the Knight Institute Wednesday is challenging the Trump administration's use of gag orders to bar immigration judges from speaking or writing to the public and media.
The institute, which represents the National Association of Immigration Judges, alleges that restrictions the administration has placed on immigration judges violates the First Amendment, and imposes an unconstitutional prior restraint on their free speech.
From the complaint.
Read more about the lawsuit here.